Nadhim, I wonder if I could turn to you now, because as a recent Minister for Business, you'll have a unique perspective on the role of government and the regulators and legislators and policymakers can play in holding companies to account around their sustainability and ESG performance. We've seen a lot of companies, or we've seen all companies, under increasing pressure from the investment community and the funding institutions, forcing them to address certain issues. But that only goes so far. What role do you see government and policymakers play going forward? And also, with companies increasingly operating on a global scale, how do you unite? How do you get consensus amongst those policymakers to ensure that there is some sort of global policy in place that will really start to drive better performance?
Good evening from London, and it's great to be with you. And I have to say that what Jeremy does for Peace One Day has been remarkable, and I have watched him passionately grow this organization and this cause to where it is today. And it's great to be part of that history of Peace One Day. It's always been a cause that's been close to my heart. I guess there's sort of a couple of areas, and let me sort of try and unpack that for you. One is that the United Kingdom, in terms of the E in ESG, the environmental aspect of this, is hosting COP26 next month. We're almost just about a month away now, in November, in Glasgow. This is probably the most important gathering of nations to really address the issue of climate change. As we speak tonight, as we discuss ESG tonight, the president designate of COP26, Alok Sharma, is in New York, as is the Prime Minister. And what I hope we can achieve with a successful COP26 is beginning to really deliver that sort of global coming together, countries setting their differences aside and coming together to address one issue which we all, I think, recognize to be fundamental, which is to save the planet. Or at least, as someone said to me the other day, the planet will survive. It is humanity that will be harmed. So that is a incredibly important goal, a goal that I know that my government, my Prime Minister, is committed to. So that's leadership, and leadership counts for a lot, I think, in addressing the issue of ESG. And the other area, let me again sort of speak of my own personal experience on governance, so the G of ESG, where I co-authored a book when I first entered Parliament, looking at the financial crash and the crisis of 2007-8, and specifically at particular examples of leadership gone wrong, whether it's Fred Goodwin in the United Kingdom at RBS, and what happened there. And part of what we did, the research that we did, and ultimately what we authored, and the call on government in the final chapter of the book, is to say, look, if you are leading a company, a business that is so important, that has a systemic impact on an economy, if it fails, then there needs to be much greater accountability and checks and balances in place. And we made a recommendation in the book that actually, if you are on the board of a company that is systemically important to an economy, then it should be a criminal offense if you are found to have misbehaved on that board, whether you are the non-execs or the execs. In the same way that if you are a restaurateur and your kitchen and hygiene leads to people being poisoned, then it is not just a civil, it's a criminal offense. Or in the case of dangerous driving, and putting people's lives at risk. So that change was embraced by the then Chancellor, George Osborne, and the British government, and it's actually now in legislation. And I think it creates a dynamic that is a positive one between the non-execs and their role on the board and the execs, in the sense that knowing that outcome, or that reprimand is there, forces the dynamic to change, and I hope leads to better governance on the board. But the greatest driver, in my view, of this change is that it's good business. Whether it be on the environment, it's not just making sure that we work together globally to deal with climate change, but actually working together locally in the United Kingdom. You create new opportunities for jobs, for growth, whether it's offshore wind, where we now 36% of the whole of the planet's offshore wind energy production is from the United Kingdom, and the Prime Minister wants to quadruple that from incredible innovation at our universities or our small businesses, and of course the larger businesses as well. The same can happen in areas like nuclear, whether it's modular, small modular reactors, or the advanced modular reactors. The same in other parts of renewables. Hydrogen, we've got a big hydrogen strategy in the United Kingdom. So actually, it is not just the right thing to do, because it is incumbent on all of us to make sure we deal with global warming, a real issue for the planet, for humanity. But it's actually good business because it translates into opportunities, jobs, not just in the UK, but also opportunities globally. And so I think the biggest driver of this in terms of government is how can we create an environment where innovation, discovery, science, and business work together. And we're seeing more and more of it. And whilst I was in the Department for Business, Energy, and Industrial Strategy, I saw this firsthand. Incredible discovery, incredible investment in research and development. And we committed at the manifesto at the election that we will almost double our research and development budget in the UK, which is something that I think will help accelerate this process even further.
Thank you so much. And actually you make a really good point. And when you think about the SDGs, I always think SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, which is, the one that brings everything together. They are all interlocked anyway, but it's the one that brings every single aspect together, whether it's government, whether it's business, whether it's the individual, whether it's local communities. And the other point I would make is, I think coming out of the pandemic, what the pandemic has taught us, the positive lesson to come out of the pandemic, is that if you can work in collaboration, if you are prepared to put aside your commercial competitive differences, and you are prepared to work together, and we see that in certain sectors, that where you see peers working together to address industry-wide issues, it is so much more powerful. So yes, I agree entirely. And I was delighted to see that at the UN General Assembly today, Biden has announced an increase in funding, a doubling in the funding for the climate change fund. So that is all very good, and will of course have a positive impact, not only on local communities, but on business as well. So it is a virtuous circle. That's the beauty of the SDGs. Frank, can I turn to you now? Because clearly Betsy Lipton is an organisation with sustainability at its heart, and also is driven through its supply chain. And a lot of money goes into developing these sustainability strategies, into rolling them out. A lot of corporate effort goes in. It drives the whole corporate strategy. It really can fundamentally shift a business, which is a positive thing, but also is a very difficult thing to manage. So what I want to know is, how much does a company's ethical and sustainability performance drive consumer choice? You are a consumer brand. What is their value in doing this? Do consumers really buy into this? And as the guardian of the Lipton brand, how do you translate that value you're building into your organization into some of your consumer communications and campaigns?
Thanks, Rebecca, and wonderful to be here. And we at Lipton are just so excited to be working together with Peace One Day and Jeremy and the team for a second year on this International Day of Peace. So thanks for the question, Rebecca. We are working, as you know, extremely hard to make our business more sustainable. In particular, we focus, given the nature of our business, in terms of sugar reduction. By the end of next year, we'll have 80% of our portfolio below 5 grams per 100 ml, and we focus very, very much on making our bottles, transitioning our bottles from virgin plastic to recycled plastic. And by the end of next year, we'll have 50% of our portfolio that is recycled. So we're making a lot of progress. We're leading in the industry in this space. We're not at all complacent or happy. There's a lot more to do. But as you say, it's taking an enormous amount of resource and effort to get the momentum that we are. And as much as possible, we want to convert that into positive consumer preference. And we've had a lot of success in that. There's a lot of evidence that sustainable brands and brands with purpose do drive what we call brand power, which is, is a measure of mental availability for a brand, meaningfulness, difference, and helps to create salience and standout. But I must be totally transparent and say that it is not always a slam dunk in terms of being able to convert into immediate preference. But critically important, we persevere, and we persevere for 3 reasons. I think firstly, what we see is with the younger consumer group, with whom we call Gen Z, there is a lot of engagement and are very informed in this area, and that's critical because this is going to be the consumer group of the future. I think secondly, we all collectively are appreciating the kind of climate crisis that we're in at the moment. And for sure, what we can anticipate is, I think, a radical shift in consumer sensitivity and appreciation of businesses that are making a difference and brands that are making a difference. And thirdly, I think, and really importantly, because the ESG is a multi-stakeholder model. As important as consumers are, they are not the only stakeholder, right? And when you do a holistic assessment, actually, of the impact that our business has on all stakeholders, it's a conclusion that the cost of not taking action is going to be greater than the cost of taking action and the challenges of that. So for these reasons, we persevere on this journey, and we fundamentally believe as a business, as do our parent companies, that we will do well by doing good, and so continue to focus on these programs and continue to focus on how we can transfer that into meaningful propositions for our consumers.